right, and back here in Napier for the Air New Zealand Wine Awards, and now I'm sitting next to Air New Zealand's other wine consultant, John Belsham, who also happens to be the winemaker of Fox's Island Wines. Thank you for being here, and I thought John would be the perfect person to talk about New Zealand's wine industry because he probably knows more about it than anyone I've ever met, and there are a bunch of surprising, interesting facts about it, including the fact that there's more to New Zealand wine than Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, which is what we seem to get the most of in the United States. So what are some of the other varietals that they make here?
Well, it's a good question, Eric, and I think a lot of people understandably recognise New Zealand for its Sauvignon Blanc because that has been the most significant export in terms of volume and also in terms of critical analysis. People do understand Pinot Noir because that is the most significant red wine that we make in this country. However, when you look at New Zealand, we are blessed with a fascinating range of climates from the North Island to the South Island. They're all cool climates. However, I cannot think of anywhere else in the world that produces such a range of premium wines from such a diverse range of varieties. So to me, it's the mini Europe. It's the mini New World Europe. So we have wonderful sparkling wines, and if we start from the north, which in the southern hemisphere is the warmest part, we move to the south, which is the coolest part. That
takes some getting used to for some of us northern hemisphere drinkers.
Correct, and the bath water does circulate the other way when it empties.
Is it the Coriolis effect?
Exactly. But we do not stand on our heads.
Right.
and the gravitational pull is still the same, irrespective of how many glasses of wine that you have.
Sometimes it gets stronger, I suspect.
Sometimes it should get stronger. So the wine styles that I think are wonderfully expressed in this country that often people don't recognise, certainly where we are here in Hawke's Bay, we have fantastic wines made from the Bordeaux varietals, so that Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot and Malbec, which are the fundamental grapes of what we know as Bordeaux wines. They are blended to make these beautiful Bordeaux styles, which certainly the Americans listening to this or watching this would understand that many great examples of those come from the Napa Valley or from Sonoma.
We call them meritage blends a lot.
Meritage blends, like it's the same. It's the same concept. And the English call them carrot.
Okay.
It's the same. It's the same. So this part of New Zealand produces great wines of that style. It also produces very exciting Syrah wines, which is the grape from the Rhone Valley. So Hermitage or Rhone wines, they're made from Syrah, sometimes Grenache, but Syrah. Interestingly, it's exactly the same grape variety as Shiraz, which is more known as Shiraz in Australia.
But you would never know it by the way the wines here taste versus the way they taste in Australia.
Correct.
Such
so
a different flavor
we have much more what we call cool climate or finer, more aromatic style of Syrah versus the wonderful, rich, complex wines from South Australia, for example, which tend to be very generous and often with quite robust tannins. So then we move further south to the bottom of the North Island where we have the Martinborough region, wonderful Chardonnay, also Pinot Noir, but also beautiful Rieslings.
And that's, I think, a surprise. People don't know that they make Riesling in New Zealand.
It's the little secret weapon that we have. And of course, Riesling is the wine that apparently no one drinks, but as soon as you pour them in a glass, they fall in love with it. It's actually a fantastic wine to take to a dinner party because they're not expensive, because they're undervalued. They come in a beautiful range of styles from very dry through to very sweet.
Also a distinguishing feature of Riesling as a varietal itself. It's one of the only ones that is made like that.
Exactly. And they come from typically small producers and typically producers that are very passionate about what they do, and they're always beautiful wines.
So good. That's a nice little house present gift from John to you.
There you are. And of course, the next region we move to is Marlborough, which is known for its Sauvignon Blanc. It also is a fine producer of Pinot Noir, of Chardonnay, and of course of Riesling. and as we move further south, or actually we should not ignore Nelson, which has wonderful Chardonnays, also through the Pinot Noir.
The very northern tip of the South Island.
Yeah, we're still in the northern part of the South Island. And then we move further south to the central South Island, the Canterbury region, and again Pinot Noir, but also Riesling, great Sauvignon Blanc. And then of course Centro Otago, the most southerly of the regions. Everyone knows the Pinot Noir. Everyone has probably had a Centro Otago Pinot Noir if they've had a New Zealand red wine. But the region actually makes outstanding Riesling again. And my favourite from Central Otago are the Method Champenoise.
Oh, okay, so some sparkling wines.
Wonderful Method Champenoise.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. They have the finesse and the expression of champagne, but not at price.
Oh, that's always a welcome sign, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting from this conversation is that think about the regions that you might know or not know in New Zealand, and then maybe try some of the varietals that you didn't know that they produced, because there are bound to be some interesting surprises to them.
Exactly, and I think the more that you get interested in wine, the more you want to understand a little behind the scenes. Whilst New Zealand, like all wine producing countries, has its major producers, and they typically will make the varietal blended wines. Sauvignon Blanc, obviously, we've talked about the Meritage blends, we've talked about Pinot Noir, but for me, the most interesting story is finding those producers that are small, privately owned operators that have a wonderful piece of dirt somewhere. That's their special place, and they're very proud of, and they make wines that reflect that. And that's why I call it the little Europe of the New World, because we have lots of those. And it's not just selling the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc story. It's selling the mom and pop vineyard that may do wonderful Gewürztraminer, or may do wonderful Viognier. But they're expressive, they're unique, they have a personality.
Fantastic. Well, that is one thing New Zealand wines certainly have, at least the ones that we've been trying so far today. So I thought maybe if we could include a couple little fun facts about New Zealand wine, just I'll throw some things out and we'll see what we know. How much of the world's wine does New Zealand produce?
Oh, I think it's around about 2%.
2% of the world's wine, which is pretty phenomenal. And how many people live here in New Zealand?
We have 4 million people. We have about 30 million sheep and 70 million vines.
It's a pretty good proportion then.
I think it's a great proportion.
Where do you guys fall in the drinking sort of thing? Are most people here wine drinkers?
Well,
or do they go...
certainly now, if you went to any restaurant in this country, every table would have wine sides. 25 years ago, that would have been a mixture of beer and spirits and some wine and probably teapots. but these days, I think the numbers are around about 16 litres per head.
Okay, that's pretty good. It's about 4 gallons for us Americans out
there.
So
I don't know what, I was trying to think what the US is, but okay. Yeah. I think the US is about 10 litres per head, isn't it?
Oh, that's pretty good. Although we consumed the most in absolute volume this past year in the entire world. The most wine in total volume, apparently. So we've got to work on the per capita number, apparently.
Yeah.
And if there's a little surprise wine that you can recommend to people watching, is there anything that we can look out from a New Zealand wine that we might not have heard of so far?
Oh gosh, there's so many, and I think it would be unfair.
I know it's putting you on the spot.
It would be unfair to say.
What's one you had in the last week that you really enjoyed?
Well, I'll tell you what, just at the table just before I came, we have just enjoyed a glass of Terra Sancta Riesling from Central Otago. Wonderful, fresh, delicate, dry Riesling from Bannockburn. So there you go.
Oh, fantastic. Well, good. I want to get back to the table to try, but thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking as always.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.